God gon' apply that pressure. Blessings in good measure, press it down, shaking together. Jesus pull me up, my cup running over. Got that blessing. Holy Spirit all in my temple. Carry that word in my vessel. Trying that spirit, I'm a testing. Everything from the Lord is the devil. Blessings in good measure, press it down, shaking together. Jesus pull me up, my cup running over. Got that blessing. Holy Spirit all in my temple. Carry that word in my vessel. Trying that spirit, I'm a testing. Everything from the Lord is the devil.
Peace to everybody tuning in to another edition to Not Your Sunday Service. I have with me Brother Julius, and we're going to be going over the conversation of even the thoughts of foolishness is sin. And it's important to have a conversation such as this, just to think about the fact that when you're thinking about God and the type of person that he is, he's not the type of person who operates like we do. He comes from the standpoint of living in eternity, and not just living forever, but forever he's been a righteous being. So there's a certain kind of way he operates to where even his mindset is different from ours. We're not going to go here, but even in Isaiah chapter 55, it talks about how our thoughts are not God's thoughts, right? Even as the heavens are so far above the earth, so are his ways higher than our ways, and his thoughts than our thoughts. It just shows how far ahead, light years wise, God's way of thinking is compared to ours. So when you put that into consideration and you look at mankind today, it just comes to show how far along one we've backtracked into evil, because he did at first attempt to give us his way of thinking, and we're gonna touch on that later in this lesson. He did give us a way to start thinking like him, right? We are so far moved as to what it looks like to think like God. And secondly, it just shows how much room for improvement we have on an individual level, because it's not even just the things that you do that can get you in trouble with the Lord, right? It's even the things that you think, which is we're going to go ahead and go to our first spot, which is Proverbs chapter 24. We're going to get right into it. Proverbs chapter 24. We're going to pick it up at verse 8 and 9. Proverbs 24, 8 and 9. When you get there, go ahead and read that.
He that deviseth to do evil shall be called a mischievous person.
So in the eyes of the Lord, he gonna call a spade a spade. He gonna call, I love to say that. Listen, if it quacks like a duck, if it walk like a duck, right? If it paddle in the water like a duck, guess what? It's a duck. The Lord is going to call it for what it is. And it says, he that devised to do evil shall be called a mischievous person. And he's not even saying you already committed the act. He's saying you just devising it. It's in your mind that this is what you intend on doing. The fact that it's in your heart, the Lord is going to already say, okay, based off how this person is thinking, he's already an evildoer in my eyes. That's how the Lord feels. He says, he that devised to do evil shall be called a mischievous person. Verse 9.
The thought of foolishness is sin,
Mm-hmm.
and the scorner is an abomination to men.
And that's how God is trying to let us know, even on, like people try to say, on a molecular level, trying to bring us down to the smallest, most basic level possible, even down to your thoughts. God is saying that the thoughts of foolishness is sin. So you didn't even have to go and commit the act, right? It's
Right.
like how in Matthew chapter 5, I want to say around verse 27, verse 28, when Jesus, he's walking the scene and he says, listen, you may have heard back in the day, thou shalt not commit adultery, right? But he took a step. He said, but whosoever loved after a woman in his heart has committed the act already. See, you allowing that lust and that covetousness of another man's wife just to sit in your mind, that right then and within itself, you already committed the act. You just haven't been given the opportunity, right? So it is our job as servants of the Lord to clean up this mind, because even the thoughts of foolishness is sin to God. He don't want you to even think about the evil, because God is not a God that is tempted with evil. You know what I'm saying? And you read in Isaiah chapter 45 how it says he creates light, he creates dark, he creates good and evil. The type of evil that he does is not the same as we, because God is in heaven and he's sitting on the throne, and he's dishing out rewards to mankind. And everybody's being rewarded according to their works. Even though we don't want to believe that, we want to think that, hey, we saved by grace and we saved by faith. These are very true things, right? It is through the faith of Jesus wiping away our past sins. It's through the grace that he didn't kill us right then and there that we have a shot at everlasting life, right? But we can see just on a daily basis the consequences for people's actions being rewarded to them on immediately. We don't have to see the lake of fire immediately, but guess what? Be driving down that road too fast, right? Right? Let it be snowing and you being a reckless driver. You're going to reap the recompense or the reward of those poor decisions immediately. And the Lord, you see all this destruction that's going on right now in this world, the Lord is allowing it to happen. Nothing is going on in this earth and the Lord not seeing it. Why? Because mankind, they being judged according to his work now and will be on judgment day, right? So he is calling out the sin, and it all begins in mind. It says right here, the thoughts of foolishness is sin, and the scorner is an abomination unto men. Let's go over to our next spot, which is Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 18. Because your action gonna speak louder than your word. That's why you don't want to be, saying one thing, right? We can say we love God, we can say we believe, but if you're not operating according to that, and your actions are lining up with that, hey, he said, he that devises a plan to do evil, that he's called a mischievous person. The Lord gonna call a spade a spade. So let's just look at an example. We're gonna pick it up Genesis chapter 18. And we're going to be verses 10 through 15. We didn't have the scriptures here, to post at the bottom like we normally do, but you're going to see the scriptures in the description, and just moving forward, we should have them as well down below. But we're going to see an example here with Sarah, Abraham's wife, how she is being told by God how he's going to be blessing her with a child. God for some time had been telling Abraham already that you're going to have a child. I think he's 99 if I'm not mistaken. But for some time now, he's been telling, you're going to have a son. And, he had him leave his country where he was living with his father. He went to a strange land, the land of Canaan. And he'd been walking with the Lord for some time. And even though he told him that, Abraham ain't seen it yet. And on top of that, just fast forward getting you introduced to Genesis 18, God actually came down. He came down from heaven because he had to go see for his own eyes what was really going down in Sodom and Gomorrah. Because Sodom and Gomorrah, was a land full of sin and wickedness. So he had to see it for himself. There's no way they was operating the way that they were. But while on his way to go visit there, he stopped by and pulled up on Abraham and Sarah. And let's just see how this interaction take place. Genesis chapter 18 and verse 10. What's that say?
And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life.
Mm-hmm.
And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him.
So God is talking to Abraham, right? And it be little nuances that you see when you're reading the Bible. You can see the order, right? Because the order, as we talked in our first podcast episode that we dropped, not last week, but the week before, our parents have failed us, the rise of the gender wars. We talked about the order that God established in mankind, which is God the Father, then the Son, then man, then the woman. And it doesn't make a woman not as important as the man, but it creates an order as to how the Lord establishes things, right? And he say right here, he talking to Abram, he said, and I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Verse 11.
Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age,
Mm-hmm.
and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women.
Go ahead.
Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxen old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being also old also?
So you read in here, it says, now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Basically, she done made it to the point where she's not giving birth no more. Right? We call it today menopause. They done giving birth to children. She's at that point in her life. So Sarah says in verse 12, therefore Sarah laughed within herself. She heard God saying this, right? And Sarah laughed with her. She said, after I am waxed, so now I'm old, I'm of old age. Am I gonna have the pleasure, my Lord being old? He old too. We really gonna be able to have kids? What the Lord say in verse 13?
And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child, which am old?
Now, here's a crazy thing that you got to pay attention to. Like I said, in the nuances, you can see one, that it's not like the Lord approached Sarah directly. What did he do? He approached the man, because again, that's the order, right? Sarah said it within herself. There's something going on with Sarah, but I didn't talk to Sarah. He spoke to Abraham, because it's Abraham's responsibility to, dress his wife, because that's something that we got to do sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Even amongst man and woman, right? As a man, if your wife is tripping, you got to address it. Vice versa. Sometimes as a man, you can be tripping and your wife got to be able to speak to you. But both of y'all need to be able to come to each other, like it says in Galatians 6, in the spirit of meekness. So don't get up in arm. Oh, he said he got to check his wife. Hey, didn't Job do that to his wife? When she said, curse God and die, Job said, what? Thou speakest as one of the foolish women. He had to check his wife. Right? So we can't sit here and act like we have to go make sure that the whole house is in order, that the whole house is being in subject to the Lord. I ain't saying beat her upside the head, but no, you got to address sin for sin in your house. Right? And that's what Adam should have done to Eve. That probably would have spared us a lot of this headache of sin we're dealing with right now. Right? But Abraham, hey, the Lord is talking to Abraham. Pay attention to this as well. Verse 12 says, therefore Sarah laughed within herself. It's not even like she's saying this out loud. She's saying this to herself. It says, therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also. She doing all this in her mind. And it said, the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? So he checking it, right? Something as small as, because this is you can't hide your thoughts from God. No matter what you may be doing, you can hide your thoughts from man, right? Like it's saying in 1 Corinthians 2, nobody knows the thoughts of a man except the man himself. Julius could be hiding his thoughts from me, and vice versa. I can behave a certain way, but my thoughts will always remain to myself. But when it comes to God, he sees it all. He sees the thoughts that's going on with Sarah. And what Sarah said in verse 4, and what happened in verse 14?
Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son.
Right. And the thing, too, that you got to pay attention to is that something as small as this, God didn't even let slide by. Something so small, you would think, oh, that was harmless for her to have that thought. But you got to understand, God said out his own mouth, you're going to have a son. So any form of adult, you got to check. We're going to see later in this lesson. You got to be able to have all your thoughts in subjection to God. So even though God gave this decree to Abraham and Sarah, and she heard it and she laughed at the thought, the Lord don't play that. Like it tell you in Psalm chapter 5 that the Lord, it says that, what's it called? It says that basically he got no pleasure in wickedness. He have no pleasure in wickedness or the evildoer, and something as small as this, he don't like. So if God doesn't like even the smallest just thought of doubt that we see in that Sarah having, she just laughing at the idea. Imagine the sin that goes on in the world. We got the murder. We got the blasphemy we're going to see later on. We got the adultery. We got the stealing. All this thing on the Lord hated all. But the thing is, all these things begin as a thought. And the Lord, he took it upon himself to address even this little thought that didn't sit right with him that Sarah had. Why? Because even the thoughts of foolishness is sin to God. He don't play that. So is anything too hard for the Lord? Listen, I done created everything. I make the earth sit on nothing, right? Hang on nothing. I done formed you out of the dust of the earth. You don't think I can put a baby in you? Even though you passed the age of childbearing? You don't think I can do that? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Verse 15.
Then Sarah denied, saying, I laugh not, for she was afraid.
Yeah, she got a show face. Nah, I wasn't laughing, Lord. But she was scared, you know what I'm saying? But she realized she got caught. And that's if the Lord was walking down this earth, a lot of people would be crapping themselves because of how carnal we are as human beings. We don't know what it's like to have a perfect being around us all the time. Crazy thing is, we got angels all around us at all times, taking account of everything. We forget that the angels is around us. Reporting back to the Lord, yeah, Lord, he did that. He did that too. Oh, he was thinking this. But something as small as the perfect being around you, you having that, he checking it. But we forget that we got countless angels around us keeping record of everything that we do. That's why it's important that we keep our mind and our bodies under subjection, like Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid, right? But what did he say?
And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh.
But you did laugh. You gonna call it out. If it walk like a duck, quack like a duck, guess what? It's a duck. You did laugh, though. So he had to address that. Let's go over to our next spot. Let's go over to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15. And we're going to pick it up at verse 15. Because in this chapter, you read about how, we got 18 minutes left. You read about how basically Jesus and his disciples, they out about. His disciples actually, I believe they eating something and they haven't washed their hands. And the Pharisees, they pull up on Jesus talking about, hey, why are your disciples going against the traditions of the elders? Because they out here eating without washing their hands. To me, I find that fascinating. How do you know I wasn't washing my hands before I ate? You must have been looking real hard to see that I didn't wash my hands, right? And people like to run here to see, because Jesus made a profound statement. He made a statement. He says that it's not what goes into you that defiles you, but that which comes out, right? So people like to use that statement to say, oh, well, because of that, I can eat whatever I want. Jesus is saying here that, listen, me eating unclean foods, me eating my lobster, my pork and stuff like that, that doesn't defile me, right? But let's really get an understanding of as to what Jesus meant. Because when he made that statement, his disciples didn't even know what he meant. They were confused. So, hey, he gonna elaborate on it. Matthew chapter 15 and verse 15. What's that say?
Then answered Peter and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. And Jesus said, Are ye also yet without understanding?
Mm-hmm.
Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly and is cast out into the drought?
Well, Jesus, he's making it plain, and he's confused himself. You don't understand what I was saying? Then answered Peter and said unto him, declare unto us this parable. And Jesus said, are ye also yet without understanding? You should know. You should have understood. You really don't get it yet? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly? Once you eat something, it's gonna go into your stomach. It's gonna get digested and it's cast out into the dry. You're gonna basically poop it out, right? But that's why what goes in you isn't what's gonna defile you. Here's what's more important, verse 18.
But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart,
Right.
and they defile the man.
See, it's those thoughts
For
that
out
you
of
need.
the heart.
You good? Because it's your heart that you need to be mindful about. Your thoughts is what you need to be mindful. It says, but those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. See, it's that evil that's already inside of you. If you allow it to exist, if you allow it to fester, when opportunity presents itself, it's going to manifest. You know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of people in today's time, they like to use a statement where it says when preparation meets opportunity, essentially, right? The same thing. We've been, like it said in Proverbs 24, those who devise to do evil, hey, you're gonna be called a mischievous person. You planning in your mind all this evil, right? Just like the dude that he been thinking about Miss Susie, right? All this time, who's married to Lou. Hey, preparation in your mind. Now that a met opportunity, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna act on it. But those things which proceed out of the mouth, guess what? They come forth from the heart. That's where it began. And they defile the man. Verse 19.
For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts,
Right?
murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man.
Now pay attention to that, right? Because it's not about you can just eat anything. This is not what Jesus is giving the green light for. Because guess who's the one who asked the question? Peter. Right. Peter said, declare unto us this parable. Guess where else you read about Peter? Acts chapter 10. Mm-hmm. After Jesus died and resurrected, sitting at the right hand of the Father, then he gets a vision about a sheet with all manner of beasts on there, clean and unclean, right? And the voice says, rise, Peter, kill and eat. And Peter says, not so, Lord, for I'm not eating anything common or unclean. So you would think, hey, after Jesus gave this explanation right here, he would have been, hey, Lord, thank you for that. Let me go get that baby back rib. Let me go get that pig feet. Let me go get that shrimp. Like you would think he would have went and gone after those things, but he understood that's not what God was saying. And Jesus trying to let you know, I'm talking about eating with unwashed hands. This ain't got nothing to do with you can eat unclean foods. What I'm trying to really get you to understand is that you need to not have these contrary thoughts in your mind, because if you allow them to sit, hey, they're going to present themselves in real time. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemy. And mind you, all these things right here are things that go against the commandments of God, right? That's why you want to have, like it tell you in Hebrews 10, verse 16. It's one of my favorite verses right now because I read it not too long ago. How he said when he established this new covenant, he going to put his laws inside of your heart. Because these are the things that's going to keep you in check. They're your guardrails and navigate through life so you don't get in trouble with the Lord. If you have thou shalt not commit adultery in your heart, then guess what? You're not going to be thinking about committing adultery. If you have thou shalt not steal in your heart, you're not going to be out here being tempted with stealing. Why? Because you don't have that evil in your heart. You don't have that foolishness in your thoughts. So you're not giving it room to manifest into real life. That's why I'm saying right here, for out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. And it all begins with your mind. Let's go over to our second to last part, which is Jeremiah chapter 17. Jeremiah chapter 17. We're going to read 2 verses here, which is verses 9 and 10. Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 9 and 10. And when you get there, go ahead and read, please.
The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?
Right.
I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings.
So he's saying here, the heart is deceitful above all things. So it's very important that you don't lean to your own understanding, right? It's very important that you don't just trust in your heart, because that's what a lot of people like to do. They like to trust in their natural instincts. That's what it is. That's what it boils down to. We like to trust in our natural instincts, and we like to think that God is going to justify what we by any means necessary mentality. If it means going contrary to the word of God, you're not justified. God will not approve of that behavior. We just saw how he even checked Sarah just for having that thought. When she questioned, when God said out his own mouth, "You're gonna have a son," and she questioned it. She laughed within herself, and God checked that, right? So what makes you think that you can get away with full-blown just acting in evil? So that's why, hey, you don't want to trust your heart, because the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know? Listen, this heart is going to betray you, right? And truth be told, all as humans, we like to sin. We like to sin. So it's our job to keep that at bay. It's our job to kill that old man and operate in newness of life. And how you do that is by having the commandments of God in your heart. Don't trust in your heart, but what you want to do, like the old saying goes, what would Jesus do? Yeah. Jesus, he kept the commandments of God. He was obedient down to even sacrificing his life for mankind. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his what?
According to his ways.
According to his ways. And what else?
And according to the fruit of his doings.
Because the man that planned to do evil, he gonna be called a mischievous person. The Lord gonna call a spade a spade. He gonna see what you do when it's all said and done. Let's go over to our last spot, 2 Corinthians chapter 10. We're gonna read verses 3 through 6. You know, this is why you want to keep your mind in check, because even the thoughts of foolishness is sin. And ultimately, those evil thoughts, God, you're going to get in trouble with God based off those thoughts. So when you get there, go ahead and read, please.
For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh.
That's right.
For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds.
Because we are flesh and blood beings, but what we got going on right now is not physical warfare, it's spiritual warfare. And just like the warfare is spiritual, our weapons are not physical. They are also spiritual. So we're not out here with grenades, tanks, AK-47, all the weapons of war. Nah, it's spiritual things that we are battling, and we're utilizing spiritual weapons. Keep going. Verse 5.
Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God.
Right.
And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
6.
And having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled.
Because the thing is, foolish thoughts, they're going to come. We can't sit, I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all like you're not going to have these foolish thoughts. But our job is when they appear, like it says right here, we have to cast down these imaginations. We have to be able to discern between our thoughts. Okay, this thought is evil. This thought don't line up with the Lord. Like it says right here, cast down imagination, every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Where do you get the knowledge of God? Inside this book. And if it's contrary to his word, you bring into captivity into the obedience of Christ and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience. Oh, I had a contrary thought. I'm going to go against it with righteousness towards God 10 times even harder.
Right.
And you're going to do that through the word of God. I hope somebody got some understanding. Even the thoughts of foolishness is sin.
Surrounded by my enemies, preaching lost my limb of face. Said the strength in the hand of sin, talking about we under grace. Got no time for no fakes, had to get up out of church. Don't wanna burn in the lake, cause breaking the law and get you murked. See the truth, yeah, it hurt. Living tradition, I had to wrestle. All my members were giving the sin. It's time to use me as your vessel, filled with the spirit. Ain't in the word, know that it's coming straight from the devil. Gotta hold tight, looking for the blessing, press it down, shaking
My God
together.
gon' apply that pressure. Blessings in good measure, press it